if you know anything about Macs, they always have an Intel CPU inside, and there's usually an AMD, graphics card somewhere in there as well. But I want to make today's video to talk about why Apple is probably within the next, couple years going to be switching over to entirely a self-made computer chip that they're going to be putting at least in their laptop CPUs, or laptops, sorry, but the CPUs are going to put in their laptops. And so I want to talk about today's video and kind of make this point, because explain why they're doing this and why we pretty much are guaranteed that this will happen. So if you know anything in the past, Apple has always tried to, include ish parts, and not top tier or not current parts, I guess. Like, for example, I think of the laptops currently, they don't have necessarily the top tier graphics card. They could, a couple generations old. So in the past, especially with the iPhone thing in particular, they've actually begun developing, trying to at least develop every single part of the iPhone. So basically no, distributor or nobody that's producing this can actually have them, charge high prices. They have control over everything. So looking at this, the iPhone is a good example, but it would not be such a big surprise, especially with Intel CPUs not really cutting it lately. And I'm not trying to be hateful on Intel, and the same thing most likely will happen to the graphics cards from AMD. I'm just saying that Intel CPUs have not seen a substantial leap in performance except for this last generation. And yes, we're getting high-end CPUs on the laptop range, but they're i9s, and Apple doesn't really like to put high-end stuff, especially on laptops, when that will consume a massive amount of power. As you can think, any high-end stuff will completely drain your battery within, an hour or so. And Apple likes battery life, because battery life currently is kind of a bigger thing for laptops than really performance, especially for those people that are just taking notes, which is the only thing you really can do in a Mac, and, taking notes for classes or something. So the laptops, they really want to make sure have a better battery life. And how they could do this is simply by developing an ARM processor, I believe, which basically is just something that's specifically designed for power efficiency, and it actually can, better suit for the tasks that are kind of done on the, I guess, laptops and, I guess, iPads, things like that. So the big thing is, also in hand with this, we'd actually expect something along the lines of a iPad kind of OS showing up on the iMacs just to be compatible with this. And I think that would be, obviously Apple's going to make it extremely expensive. And the other thing is, with anything they do, the other thing is this special OS and these special chips will basically offer extreme better power performance. And while yes, they may only be at like 2 gigahertz, they will be probably solely developed by Apple, because Apple really likes the efficiency it gets out of developing every aspect of the computer, and there'll probably be integrated graphics on most of the low-end stuff, the iMac or the MacBook Airs or whatever. And the only time I'd really expect to see an Intel CPU in Macs at all, and I would expect this to eventually go out as well, or at least switch over to maybe AMD for better cores, or depends if Intel releases something different. But I really would expect either, the low-end stuff that really is solely the biggest factor is, power consumption, to switch over directly to these new ARM processors that Apple will be developing. As for those MacBook Pros, I could expect to see an Intel processor in there. That really means that Intel needs to get it, in gear, and the fact that you can't have an i7 only have 8 threads and 4 cores in 2018. AMD is practically going to be releasing some, laptop grade stuff soon that's going to pretty much blast that out of the water. So the big question we got to ask is, yes, we might see Intel for a little bit longer in those brands, while we may see immediately new CPUs coming out within the next year or so from Apple that are developed solely by Apple, while Intel may stick around in the higher end laptops. And I would assume for desktops we could probably see something for much farther into the future, just because what they're really trying to do is they're trying to get the power efficiency and things like that, especially for battery life. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, give it a thumbs up, and of course if you like this cool tech related things, make sure you check out my channel. Of course, thank you for watching. Goodbye.